people have literally died in these jobs.
Wall Street, you're like super serious, you're super intense.
It's all a scam.
I'm not cool, I'm not pretty, but I'm smart.
I felt like you were just being eyed up as like a snack for a tiger to eat for lunch.
You work so long, you work so hard, and then you walk away.
I hit a wall and I was just burned out.
When I left, I became a different person. My personality changed.
Hi everyone, we're actually gonna start a podcast. Do you feel fucking stupid?
This is going to be some cockamamie, harebrained idea that we have, but Kristen was all in from the beginning.
Here's the secret.
Today on the podcast, we've got Jen and Kristen. They're best friends. They're founders of the Wall Street Skinny podcast. They used to be huge finance girlies, Wall Street girlies, and now they have a super successful podcast where they're teaching financial literacy to the next generation, but they're making it fun, they're making it girly, and they're making it entertaining. Today, we're not talking about stocks and bonds. We're not talking about finance tips and tricks, because I don't know anything about that. What we're talking about is femininity as a strategy, self-worth and ego. We're talking about what it really takes to win on Wall Street and what it takes to walk away from such major, intense, important jobs and go start something on your own. So welcome to this week's episode of the Okay Sweetie Show.
Can you do the end again, please?
So welcome to this week's episode of the Okay Sweetie Show. Okay, sweetie. Okay, sweetie. Okay, sweetie. Okay, sweetie.
Okay, sweetie.
The Okay Sweetie Show. And then the universe supports you, and the universe will always have your back, and the universe is, what's the word? Anyways, so you guys just sort of kind of decided to get into this super intimidating male-dominated industry of finance, and I want to know what part of you felt like you'd be safe in that environment.
Ironically, all of it. I never felt intimidated or put off by the fact that it was a male-dominated environment. And we talked about this at dinner last night, that it's funny. I think what would now be classified in a younger culture speak as pick-me energy, I think that coming from a background where both of us wanted to be overachievers and wanted to be recognized for a very specific set of skills, like cue Liam Neeson voice, I always wanted to be recognized as smart. Like that was the number one way that I found validation, was like, oh, good job, like A+, very goal results oriented. And so I was really looking for a framework where that part of my ego would be stroked. Of like, hey, there's gonna be a number next to my name. There's gonna be like a competitive environment and I can rise to the top. And for whatever reason, finance scratched that itch. So it wasn't that I wanted to be in finance so desperately and I was intimidated by the fact that there were men there. I think that some would argue, and I'm not an expert in this whatsoever, but that it might be a more male-oriented way of thinking, and that's how my brain is wired. And so that's what led me to go into a male-dominated industry. And it's more like, oh, well, okay, well, you guys think the same way I do. You're looking for the same kind of validation I am. It's a fit. But I don't know, you may feel differently.
No, I mean, we literally had this conversation last night, which is why this is so funny. I mean, Jen and I, when we were younger, we were like dorky, nerdy, like so uncool.
I love
like
a nerd.
so like, and so I do think there's a part of us that at a young age, our persona, like we identify, like we are smart. Like that's how I think of myself. First and foremost, above anything else. Like, I'm not cool, I'm not pretty, but I'm smart. And so then when I went into college, like, I was like, I want to go into the thing that is the hardest. So what's the hardest? Biomedical engineering. And then, oh, there's too many women in that. I'm going to go into mechanical engineering because there's fewer women. And then it's like, I want to get a job on Wall Street. Well, by the way, the whole like mechanical engineering thing, like not my thing, because like I can't even turn on a TV. But I went to visit Jen, actually, she was working on Wall Street. And I was like, well, this seems like much more fun. You're basically getting paid a lot of money to live in New York and to learn. Like, that seems awesome. And so Anne had like this huge analyst class that felt like freshman week all over again. I was like, this seems great. But back to the point, like for me, like I always wanted to find the most like technical thing to like prove that like I can keep up with the guys. And like I think that there's something, and I don't know if it's like an elder millennial thing, because the woman we had dinner with last night, we were talking with this. Like she went in and she was like a credit trader, which is very like, traders are almost all men. Like there's different roles on Wall Street. Some are more female, some are more male. That is very heavily male. And we were talking about how like we always almost wanted to show that like we're the same. Like we intellectually are the same. Now, that doesn't mean we're not gonna like lean into like the female parts of ourselves, but like I want to show that again on an intellectual level, I'm your equal, you know?
Were you guys always okay with being smart as the sign of worth for you? Because like I feel like for girls a lot of the time, it's, you're so pretty.
Sometimes you don't have a choice.
Yeah, that was
you
because
should see
the other-
photos of us in middle school.
We're
with
gonna
the
need to pull up some
braces,
photos.
the headgear, the glasses. Like, it was not a good look. So it wasn't like, well, should I be valued as pretty or smart? I had one route. Like,
You were just like, I'm smart and like
I better lean into that.
That's pretty.
But that's the whole thing where it's like you identify as this thing. So I do think, like I said, in those formative years, we identified as smart people who weren't cool. You know what I mean? Like, and so you basically lean into that thing that has been what has gotten you praise and success or whatever. And so then, you know, as Jen put it, when you get older and like, you know, the highlights can fix it and like the braces come off and like you can like put on some makeup and like you can like, you know, present yourself maybe a little bit differently. Like we still identify at our core as like, we think of ourselves as smart people who then like, okay, like we can try to like look more aesthetically great. And, you know, even like I have no sense of style. So I basically like have morphed into Jen. We're wearing the same shoes. But but it's one of these things where I think it's like in the formative years, how do you identify yourself? And so finance was just such an obvious thing. Like, of course I'm going to go into that, you know?
Well, and what are the competitive arenas in which you are successful, right? Like, again, snowboarding, right? If you were a great snowboarder, you were going to go compete in the snowboarding arena. If you are a absolutely beautiful woman who's amazing at dating, maybe you go on The Bachelorette, right? I don't know. Or The Bachelor, I guess. Like, if you are a weird nerd.
You're like a weird nerdy type.
Yeah, who's gotten validation for being smart their whole life. You're like, well, finance seems to work, right? Like, so it's, you know,
And I think the other element too is there is a little bit in college where I think, you know, we were, again, I was very unfortunate. So it's like, what could I do? I could like try to get into like a very good school. But then you get into that school and you're like, well, now what's the next thing I can do? The next thing I can accomplish is I can get one of these elite jobs that is hard to get into. And so you kind of try to keep almost like going for the thing that's hard to get. Now, I will say, for me at least, when I ultimately got to the place that I was like, this is, like I kept getting to the place that I wanted to get to. And then when I was there, I was like, well, I don't know if this is actually the best place, you know, use of my skills. Like the thing with investment banking, which is where I worked, it is very much like you cannot make a single mistake. There cannot be a decimal off. There can't be, if you're spelling a word, I mean, Jen jokes, like, I can't spell a word right to save my life. Like, I'll put stuff up on Instagram, and she's like, Kristen, this sentence is literally
it's math brain versus, like, language arts brain, though. Like, I feel like you can't have both. And if you have both, like, fuck you if you have both.
I always am like, I'm an ideas person.
You've also mentioned, and just tell me if you don't want to get into this, but you've mentioned that you got into this male-dominated industry, like you just said, because, oh, there's too many women in that, there's too many women in that, and you've had unpleasant experiences with women previously. What were those experiences like for you?
Oh, girl, listen. I mean, the two of us, no one would let us sit at their lunch table in middle school, so we had to eat lunch alone in the stairwells by ourselves together. Alone together.
Until she ditched me for high school, and then it was me on my island.
So sorry.
Details.
But no, again, we keep talking about this middle school trauma, like it's
but
so
it all
relevant
comes down
as
to the
a
middle school
40-year-old.
trauma.
We were talking before we hit record about, you know, your healer and psychics, and I'm like, set me up with the healer. We must cure the 7th grade trauma. But I will say, within finance, I found myself in a role that did have more women, generally speaking, because I was in a client-facing role, and that tended to be more, at least, have a higher population of women. But I was in this really awkward transition point in the aughts, right? In like the early 2000s. Okay, women had broken in, and a few women had ascended to senior roles. But there was this perception that there's kind of one woman who's gonna, like, there's room for one,
right?
But there's not room for all. So there was this very performative female support of like, women supporting women, let's have a women's event. And we'd all go to the women's event, and it basically felt like you were just being eyed up as like a snack for a tiger to eat for lunch. Like, how am I gonna cut her down? How am I gonna stab her in the back? I was fortunate enough to have a select few excellent female mentors, but for every great female mentor I had, there were 3 women who I felt like, you know, actually took me down a peg or were, you know, competing with me when they didn't need to be. And I myself was a shitty, oh, sorry, am I allowed to swear?
Oh, yeah, swear away.
I was a shitty, like, middle manager woman because I was like, I want to break this cycle for the women behind me, but I, like, didn't know how, and it's weird and it's awkward or whatever. So I think what's so great is that has changed so much. And I feel like we've gotten away from the performative women supporting women to like, okay, what does that actually mean in practice? And like, how do you actually do that? And like, do you want to support other women and why? And now it's funny. We walk into a room and it's like senior woman, and it feels organic and it's fine. But it was a product of more like the awkward transitional time that we were placed into in the industry, where it was like people said one thing and did another thing behind the scenes.
And then
that
you're
was
like,
tough.
then you're right back into that middle school lunchroom.
100%.
I never had that experience because like there was never women who were trying to take me down a peg. It was just I was working with guys who like actually were support. You know what I mean? I don't know.
The
It
guys
was like,
were pretty good. Like they were kind and supportive.
I would always go into like the more technical roles with like kind of the dorkier people, and like they were awesome.
Dorks are nicer.
They would take me under their wing. I had literally so many male mentors who would be like, I'm going to take you in a conference room and we're going to just like go through like explaining XYZ thing and like let's tell you how this trading works and like how to build LBO and like all this stuff, and like they were super supportive. And
meanwhile, I'm on the desk with women, and it's funny, you're wearing stockings now. I did not wear stockings, and they'd be like, why are you not wearing stockings? And I was like, I'm so sorry. Did I forget to shave a knee hair that has offended you? Like why do I need to wear stockings? Like,
so you're navigating like men and women who are kind of out to get you. Like, how do you?
I think, but she was in more of like a sales role. I think it's like you also have just a different energy of people who are salespeople. Like they tend to be more, you know what I mean?
More cutthroat.
Versus like just like trying to like do your model and like make sure that it works.
Maybe.
But like you're trying to like get clients and win clients, and it's like but versus like, I mean, whatever, like it's a model. So I do think there's a little bit of a difference there.
I also think it's to the individual. Like, you know, you're not paranoid if they're really out to get you. Like, okay, you know, you can create that competitive atmosphere if you want to, but it's not necessary. Yeah. Like, there is not a finite set of clients, right? And, you know, I get that, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
In terms of like navigating men and women, how does that then make you want to show up? Because something I'm just really interested in talking about is, you know, assume it's a male-dominated field. Mm-hmm. How do you? I guess we can just go here, where like you guys are fun and you're bubbly and you're pretty. Sorry to tell you, but you guys are gorgeous. And I would think that could like make it hard for people to take you seriously at times. Did you feel any of that at all?
Again, I don't identify as an attractive person, so like no, like you know what I mean?
Like you don't think that like being bubbly and like but charming, people would look at you as stupid or anything like that?
I will say this. I think that I was always very cognizant of making sure, and it's not like because I was so gorgeous and I walked in a room, no one could take me seriously. Not at all. But I do think that I did consciously make an effort throughout to make sure that I was always disarming in a way, or that I knocked myself down a peg. Yeah. We were talking about this yesterday, about the concept of imposter syndrome. And like, why do women feel imposter syndrome more than men purportedly do? And I have no idea. I'm not a man. I'm not inside their mind. Like, maybe they feel imposter syndrome all the time, and it's just that women are talking about it more.
Right.
But someone once told me that the reason that women feel imposter syndrome is because we've been told that you need to make yourself, you can't talk about how great you are. You have to be self-deprecating. You have to always like be taking the piss out of yourself and like be very humble and talking about your flaws, because how dare you go out and be bold and say how great you are and be like crowing about your accomplishments. And so I think that there can be that vicious cycle that I don't know who gave us that message. I never remember anyone being like, oh, you need to go and, you know, make sure that no one's intimidated by you or no one thinks you're amazing. But I think you get that reward socially and you learn from that behavior. That, okay, if I'm just like, oh, silly old me, I'm just asking a stupid question, you know?
Yeah, I'm just going to try to not take up too much space. Like, I'll just sit here.
Yeah, exactly. Or when I raise my hand, I have to make a joke and like make fun of myself in order to ask a question rather than being like, huh? You know?
Then can that attitude, like, can you survive on a Wall Street?
But it depends on the role. I want to go back to this for a second because I think that what you are going to be rewarded for and almost like the way that you act is very different, because if you're trying to be a salesperson, you have to be bubbly. You have to be like this thing.
Yeah.
Versus like when you're, investment banking, like the stereotypical hours, like it's like, you know, working 100-hour weeks. And I will also add, honestly, like when I was working in banking, I wasn't that bubbly. We are so lucky now because we get to be doing what really lights us up. So I think it takes our energy up a hell of a lot more. I did not act like this when I was working in banking, and we've talked about this so many times. Like, I literally met my husband. I mean, 3 months after I left, the ironic thing is he worked at Morgan Stanley where I was working, but because when I left and I went into teaching and I was doing something that like aligned with what I was meant to be doing, I was just so much happier and open to meeting people. And like, I was a different person. And Jen said this too. When I left, I became a different person. My personality changed. Yeah.
I mean, just like femininity as a strategy in these environments. Like, I want to know, and you guys can just be like, no, this literally doesn't apply, and that's completely fine. But I'm just curious about, you know, consciously, like either like you said for the women, you said, and we can cut this out. You said you dress like a frumpy lesbian.
I did.
You
no,
dress
100%.
like a frumpy lesbian. So
yes.
it's like, what's the strategy in like how you're navigating these rooms of all men or these rooms of intimidating women? You know what I'm trying to say?
I'm not saying that I did it successfully, but yes, no. You referenced a pre-call where I said that I like deliberately, I would be buttoned up. I mean, I'm wearing a turtleneck here, but I would be like buttoned up to here in like a boxy, untailored pantsuit. You know, after being scolded for my lack of stockings, I overcorrected, right? Because I wanted to be unimpeachable from like, hey, listen, I'm so scared that these women are not going to accept me unless I defang myself on all fronts. And God forbid, you know, a knee or an ankle out of place was the limiting factor. I don't want that to be a thing. But I also worked with men who I think, because of the transitional time I was in, they were towing the line of half of them were like so afraid to say anything about a woman because it was like you know, just before Me Too era, right? Where it was like, oh God, what if I say something about how a woman is dressed, I'm going to be towing the line. And then I worked for old school guys who, you know, had no respect for boundaries whatsoever. So,
because I would kind of think of it as, I mean, one, you want to be professional, you want to be taken seriously, but then, you know, there is something to be said about like, maybe you want to show a little like, maybe you're just a little tight. But I think you have to have the confidence.
And I think that sometimes takes time. And I also think like back to what Jen was saying, where it was like, initially she's like, I want to be like understood first as someone who's smart. So it's like, I don't want people to think that I got the client because I was showing a little like, I'm projecting here. I don't know if that's how you work.
Well, okay. So
and then eventually
I
you
didn't
did.
identify as someone who could get the client with my, like I never thought.
No. That it was that other people, that other women would say she only got them because she's like wearing a short skirt. She only got them because of this. And you were like, I want to like, yes, I'm attractive, but I also want people to know that I got them for my intellect, not because I was wearing a short skirt. Right. And then I do think, and again, I mean, like, I did see the evolution of your outfits, and you did start to dress more like
the wardrobe
provocatively, and like because you found your. I think that there's also with the confidence, and like my thing is when I was working on Wall Street, I still did not have confidence, and so I think to try to almost like dress provocatively and like take advantage would like be to say I think that I'm even remotely attractive, and like I think that and I just didn't have that confidence to do that. So, but I think that it's and I think that people should lean into that. Like you should lean into whatever advantage
works.
you have. Like honestly, even like fucking intelligence. I can say that for it, right?
Absolutely.
But even intelligence, like it's not like you worked so hard to get smart. No, you were born smart, or you were born whatever it is. You're born like a Olympic athlete. Like if you have these skills, these innate talents, use what you are given. Like in the environment that we're in, whatever is going to get you ahead in this environment, in the world, within the like, use it.
Yeah.
So.
I think there's a complex question that you're asking that I don't know the answer to, which is like, did you ever, whether it's femininity or sexuality, like was that ever something that I like weaponized like to my advantage? And off the cuff, I'm like, well, no, absolutely not. Like I never was like, there was never an implicit promise or whatever, like with a client that I had a deep relationship with. But like, you know, that's at least at a conscious level. You never know kind of what's brewing in the subtext of these conversations that like you're not really self-aware of because you're not examining it if that's not your intent. And like, listen, I also almost exclusively dated coworkers and clients. I married one of my coworkers. So like for me to be like, no, it just was never part of my calculus would obviously be a lie because like here I am today. So I think it's really just, was it ever a like calculated decision of like, okay, I'm on the trading floor and like whatever it takes to get ahead? There was never that.
But it's funny because it was almost a calculated decision for you to dim the way that maybe you would actually want to dress because you want the women to respect you. Like that's just such a different dynamic than I would have thought, like in a Wall Street finance type of scenario.
Yeah, interesting.
When we started, the people that were more senior, I mean, they had to work their ass off and like jump through all these hoops to get there. And I think you wanted to not be perceived as someone who was just there because whatever, and that they could make that allegation against you.
They had to jump through all these hoops, go through all these things to get to where they were. So they kind of didn't want it to be super easy for you guys. Do you think there's merit to that? Or are you just...
Yes, 100%.
Because I kind of get it, but at the same time, it's like, you guys are here doing our podcast. Like, you want to help younger women, but I kind of get where they're coming from with like, we had to go through all this shit.
But I think there has been a change. Remember, we are old. So we started in the industry in 2006, 2007. So the crop of female leaders who had come up at that time had come up in a much more cutthroat environment. They were starting in like the 80s and 90s when, Wall Street, think of freaking, what's the Leo movie? Wolf of Wall Street. Right? It's like this old boys club, all this stuff. And it was, I think, a lot harder to climb through the industry, to climb through the ranks. And there has been such a shift over, again, the past 20 years. So people who have climbed up now have had a very different experience. So they're not going to sit there and be like, well, look at all the stuff I had to do. So I think that it's become this thing where women now look at younger generations differently and want to help more than they maybe did back when we started. I think
there's less of that, I suffered, so you have to, hazing mentality. I think that those generations have passed, and I think it is much more, because again, it was you're supposed to help these women because they're women. And I think that there's something almost insulting about that. Why?
Yeah, prove yourself. Why?
Also, what has being, I don't know. My whole identity isn't tied to being a woman.
Yeah.
It wasn't at the forefront of my identity.
Yeah.
I'd much rather help someone who identified with because they really liked Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or because, we had some organic connection, not you happen to be born in this 50% of the population, therefore you should help this person. I was like, what do I owe them and what do they owe me?
Yeah.
And I think that it's now more hey, listen, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think that if you genuinely find other women who you are wow, this person's smart, this person's exciting, I want to help them.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if they're a man or a woman. I just want to help them.
But it's not go talk to this woman because she happens to have this set of chromosomes and therefore you should help her. To me, that's not a compelling argument.
I really like that theory. And I think it kind of goes along, too, with what you were saying earlier, how you have this sort of masculine way of thinking, potentially. And I kind of want to get into the, masculine versus feminine energy and how that comes out in a finance Wall Street type of scenario.
Say more. So, it's funny. My, natural temptation is to be, sitting like this.
I love that. Go off.
No.
We're all just sitting here
I know, exactly. But I think that the masculine feminine energy, there's an old SNL skit with Hugh Jackman. It's have it both ways, where he's Wolverine, but he's also a Broadway actor, singing and dancing.
Literally Troy Bolton. He raised us.
Yeah, I want to be I want to have it both ways. I want to be able to participate in all of for me, it was really important to be golfing. I'm not a good golfer, but I was there's something that they can do that I might be excluded from because I'm a woman. I really want to be able to do that. But, if there's a women's event and they're getting their nails done, I haven't had my nails done in 15 years probably, but I used to go get manicures because that's what the women would be doing. And I was I want to be able to participate in that. So I think there's almost this code switching that because I wasn't so wedded to any one part of my identity, which probably makes me sound like a very fake person. I would just put on this hat. But I think
get that.
I think you can lean into different parts of your personality as it suits the environment you're in. And I think it actually doesn't serve many people to be so inflexible and be so tied to this idea of yourself. Yeah. I don't really have any preconceived notions of who I am other than a couple core things. We talked about smart or whatever, right? And you think a couple core things and then the rest, it's the rest is still figuring it out as I go.
Does that make you feel like you can do anything? Because it would for me.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And you can and you have.
Well, no, and you can shapeshift too. Yeah. That's the other thing. I think that's the at the end of the day, it's who you are. Just and your self-perception becomes so different as you get older, and it's so funny. It's we have kids, and so it's the little person they are as a baby is and then it's they get an upgrade, and then they get an upgrade, but they're a totally different little human. And I think that even as you're going through life, you keep getting an upgrade, and you keep getting your subconscious upgrade, and again, there's those core whatever how you were I think that those early childhood experiences do shape a lot of how you kind of show up. But your identity does change. And it's like, I mean, I do think that I now, identify less as like, I need to show everyone like how smart I am because whatever. Like, but it's.
You don't have that chip on your shoulder anymore.
Yeah.
So that's something that's just like perfect segue into the next topic I wanted to get into, where identity and Wall Street, what we had talked about on our pre-call too, like, because I'm so curious about the type of person it takes to go to Wall Street. From what I know, you're working super stressful, super long hours. It's very competitive. And you guys mentioned there's like this number attached to your name. So can you just tell me a little bit more about like the worth and the number thing?
Yeah, I think it's funny. A lot of people think that people go to Wall Street to make a lot of money. Like, spoiler alert, the vast majority of people who work in finance don't actually make like insane amounts of money. There are people who are outliers who are making absolutely insane amounts of money. But the average person has a great life and is like financially secure, but is not like tonning it. So what's it really about? And I think that when you're in the framework of high school, college, et cetera, all these early metrics of judging yourself, right? There's a very structured way of thinking about success. It's a grade. It's, did I make honors? Did I, cum laude, whatever it is. And then you get into the workforce, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, now you're the executive vice president of the branch office of the this. You're captain of a canoe. Like, there's all these meaningless things.
Yeah.
The one thing that finance offers is it offers a number next to your name, meaning there is a profit next to you. There are actual dollars that you have made out of thin air, and no one can ever take that away from you, right? There is this objective measure that it doesn't matter what the politics are, it doesn't matter whatever. No one can ever take that away from you. And it's like there is a very concrete way of measuring your worth. And it's not the number of dollars you've made personally in compensation. It's what you've delivered. And then that does translate in some way, shape, or form to your compensation, directly or not. And I think for a certain type of person, that can be hugely and tremendously validating. Whereas in so many other things, again, you talk about the sports world. It's like, well, there's the Olympics, there's the championship, right? There are these metrics. But in the rest of like working jobs, there aren't those things.
Yeah.
But I will say that's, again, back to this whole like finance world. There are very different types of roles. That's more of what we call like the sales and trading side, where you are either.
No, it's not. There's deal fees. There's lead left.
But if you are going into like an investment banking role and you are a cog in the machine that is helping to facilitate your boss getting that deal done. So,
but then you're that boss.
Eventually, maybe, but most people, honestly, that's the other thing. Most people go into banking for 2 years with the hopeful goal of exiting and going to the buy side.
To get that number next to their name.
But Jen, when you're actually going into Wall Street, honestly, it's all politics if you're in investment banking. Like, there's so much politics. So it's not about some number next to your name when you're at the junior level. So I agree with you, again, in sales and trading. In investment banking, that is not the case. It is sort of a function of the deals you happen to get staffed on and, the boss you happen to be working for, and if they're going to pull for you. It is all politics.
I just wonder what that type of thing, what's the cost of living so that you have a number next to your name? What does that sort of environment do to someone's sense of self?
I think that's a really good question, because I don't think it's the healthiest thing, because it becomes when there's such a strict performance metric, that can bleed into other things. I think that's why you see a lot of eating disorders. I think that's why you see a lot of hyperfixation on fitness. I think that's why you tend to see it's very hard to maintain relationships with people outside of the industry, because you're like, you don't get it, right? Like, I think about if I were to be a surgeon, if I were to be anything where you're so deeply immersed in this thing where the stakes are very, very high, then talking to your friends who are like, oh my God, I had to stay at work until 5:02 today. You're like, what are you talking? I just can't relate to that, right?
Yeah.
So I think that it does come at the cost of a lot of especially because you're doing this at such a young age in such an intense way.
Right.
It can come at the cost of a lot of the fun things that you're supposed to do in your 20s, right? I got all those fun things out of the way in college. I didn't need time to fart around in my 20s. I wanted to go really hard, or so I thought. And then at the basically local peak of my career at the time, I was suddenly just I hit a wall, and I was just burned out, and I just wanted to. I was given the opportunity to unplug, and I took it like that. And it felt so good. So I think it comes at the cost of burnout, and it's not burnout on such a physical level, although that can happen, especially in a role like Kristen's, where it's notorious. I mean, people have literally died in these jobs from being overworked.
Jesus.
So I think that there is a very human cost to that. But I think, right now the conversation is how institutionalized is the framework that produces that cost. And I would argue that for me, at least, the cost came from within. I didn't feel any external pressure. All was.
But that's what it always is, right? Like, it's, again, the girl in middle school, like you said, you want to keep climbing the ranks to then get that new title, to then get that new number, to get, and then like you guys kind of got there.
And then what?
And then
that's like, it's funny. I realized that earlier in my career than Jen did, but like I was like, what am I don't want to wake up and be 40 one day. By the way, we're now 40, but like I don't want to wake up and be 40 with a giant bank account and like nothing else going on in my life. So I decided to sort of pull the plug earlier. And I actually do wonder, I mean, we were talking about this, and again, I hate to go back to stereotypes because there's so many freaking successful ass women on Wall Street right now who are just killing it. But I have seen, I mean, Jen went to Princeton, I went to Brown. I mean, the women who I am friends with, worked with, so smart, had the potential to be so, and again, I hate that I say this, like they were on the career path to being very successful in the corporate world and decided that that was just not enough. And I do wonder if women sometimes just like this sort of threshold where you're like, this isn't enough for me anymore, that it's a lower threshold. And that's one of the reasons you see higher attrition in women at the higher ranks, because they basically are like, I'm taking myself out of the game for a little bit because that's not my priority anymore. My priority for a long time was always winning. And then at some point, winning to me looks a little different, and that's okay. And then, by the way, a lot of times they actually want to go back into the workforce and they want to continue to win in a different way. And like, but I have seen so many of my friends who, would be like, again, graduate from Brown, go to Harvard Business School, go to like a McKinsey, work themselves up the ranks, and then be like, taking myself out, just like Jen did. Mm-hmm. Whereas again, a lot of the men I know who get to that, like, no one would walk away at that. Like, I don't know a single man who was like, you know what, I'm going to now, if they walk away, it would be like, I'm going to go do this to do my startup, right? Where it's like they think that it's going to be the next thing to make them a billionaire, not because they're like, this just isn't enough for me.
Well, it's kind of crazy because you work so long, you work so hard to get these careers that everyone measures success by, and then you walk away. What do you think it is, like what you were just saying, what do you think it is that pulls maybe, to generalize, women away? Like, is it the family thing? Is it the companionship thing? Like, what?
My priority became actually being happy and like doing what was going to light me up in my life, because I have one life.
I think there's that, and also you come from the sports world. I always hear, I would never know, but like the day after you win the gold medal is like the worst day of your life.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I never want to feel that. I never want to feel that letdown of like, I accomplished my goal, now what? So for me, the goalposts are always moving. And it's, okay, I've conquered this enough. And you say the word winning, and I think winning is a really interesting term that you use, because I think winning implies that someone's losing, right? And so I never felt like I was like, winning. Like, what is that, Charlie Sheen from 15
Charlie Sheen.
years ago?
He's back in the.
But so it was more, okay, like, there's no special obituary for being like, I toughed it out in finances, like, right? I mean, there's
it's all about what you think about yourself.
Yeah. Right. And I think, listen, one thing that women, I think, are exceptional at is reinventing themselves in their own eyes. And so I think, right, it's like makeover,
Yeah.
You get broken up with, you get bangs.
Right, exactly. I want bangs so desperatly, and every time my hairstylist is like, just please do not. Like,
wait,
it's just
do
terrible.
it.
No, it would be a mistake. But so I think that reinvention is a really important process, because the reason I punched out when I look back now is, even though I was in a role where I should be constantly learning, I am really just committed to hitting this. I wasn't learning anything new about myself, or whatever I was learning I didn't like. I wasn't finding anything, I wasn't going through personal growth. And I do think that women are very attuned into needing that and feeling that. Whereas, again, I can't speak to all men, but I know a lot of the men I worked with would hit that same point in their journey and be like, I either need a new wife or a new car, or both. And that would be the solve, right, for the end result, for the product of no longer learning anything new about themselves and about the world. It was just they'd gotten so deep in that groove. So I think women punch out of whatever the thing is because they say, I want to learn something new. And maybe it's, I want to learn what it's like to be a mom and go through that experience. Or I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be something. But they want to go through that continual transformational cycle that we are so excited to go through. And I think that that's what happened to both of us in different ways. And it's really easy to say in hindsight that's that. But at the time, it was just like, I just know I need something else. And I got to figure that out.
And then you just say, fuck it, let's start a podcast. Like, please
Well,
walk me through. Please walk me through the decision that led you to that point. Because in my mind, I'm like, you're on Wall Street. You're like super serious. You're super intense. And then you're like, hi, everyone. We're actually going to start a podcast. Do you feel fucking stupid telling people that?
Oh, my God.
So stupid.
Well, look, Jen and I have been friends since we were in second grade. Jen and I, she would always like call me up. She'd be like, hey, Kristen, I have this like great idea for a business that we should start together. And at some point, I had left the banking world and I was actually more doing like a teaching role where I would go into banks and go into these like private equity firms, universities, and I would teach them like how to build a financial model, how to value a company, like all the stuff that basically you do as an investment banker. But like I was telling you, like I'm not so good at the doing. I can teach. I'm a teacher, right? So anyway, I had been living in New York City and I was about to move, and like Silicon Valley Bank, there was this huge like bankruptcy situation. And so this all was happening at the same time. And Jen and I, we were talking about wanting to start a podcast. Now, ironically, literally the name of the podcast initially was going to be something like Moms Anonymous because Mom
Anonymous.
Yeah.
How brilliant would that be? Like Mama Anonymous?
It's really good.
I mean, thank you.
No one take it. We're still trademarking it.
The one
seriously.
thing that makes me devastated about the Wall Street Skinny is we don't have a better like pun. Like we tried. We had a lot of puns. They all got shot down. But sorry, continue.
It's smooth though.
It is what it is.
But so
It's fat phobic. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
Well, that's what we got accused of at the
don't even.
beginning. Like,
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
oh my God.
We have a story about that. But anyway, so we were talking about, okay, like we should start a podcast. Jen wanted to be anonymous. And so I was like, Jen, I don't know what the hell you did when you were working on Wall Street. Like, how about we do something related to finance? Like, let's do a podcast. You can explain what the hell you did. I can explain what I did. We can basically go. And I literally listened to a podcast with like Mark Cuban talking about his son used TikTok to like learn finance. And I was like, all the freaking TikTok videos like are so bad. I was like, let's do something and we can make it better. And Jen was like,
Yeah.
cool. I don't want to actually have my face on. By the way, I'm not going to download that app, and we're going to get paid actors to like do everything.
Like,
and
hilarious
she
to
had
me.
this like air gapped she like made a new freaking Apple iCloud login so she didn't. Anyway, we have come a long way.
You should have just worn like a mask and changed your voice.
I mean,
How
listen,
else would you be anonymous as a podcaster?
That's what we'll do for the next
Well, de moi.
the
Yes.
Phantom podcast.
Yeah.
But no, you're 100% right. I think, listen, one of the things that Wall Street deeply ingrained in me is you have to be a serious person. And people need to take you very seriously in order for you to be successful. So that was always in the back of my mind. It was like, what will my resume say? Like, girl dancing on TikTok for 2 years. Like, that's not going to play well for whatever I eventually need to do in the future. And once
So you didn't see it as like, we're doing this in the future.
I saw it as this is going to be like, Kristen and I had lots of failed projects together in our youth. We'd be like, let's make a magazine when we're in fourth grade and making lots of drawings. And like you abandon the project halfway through because someone gets upset and gets bored or whatever.
You move on to the next thing.
You move on to the next thing. So I was like, this is going to be some cockamamie, harebrained idea that we have. But I always need like an exit path so that I can reclaim my dignity once this all goes terribly awry. But Kristen was all in from the beginning. And I learned so much from her because she, it's funny, people in this context of, okay, this is my friend, right? But if you've never worked with your friend, you kind of don't know like what their secret office persona is, right? I never watched, Severance, but like your innie and your outie.
Yeah.
I only knew outie, Kristen. I didn't know innie or whatever the verse. I don't know the show well enough.
And people also tell you, don't go into business with your friends.
Oh, well, yes. And that was terrifying as well. But I was like, we've gotten in fights before. We'll be fine. I actually wasn't that worried about that. We made a vow very early on that if we were going to fight well. But so when we first started, Kristen would record a video for social media. And I was like, oh, where's the Kristen I know? And it was like this thing came on stage and was just this goddess who was like, well, if you want to learn how to build a leveraged buyout model, this is what you're going to do. And I was like, how does she know that? Like, wait, she knew all this whole time? Like, where has this been hiding? And then I was like, oh shit, I got to figure out how to do that. And it was very hard for me to find my voice and do all that because, again, I was used to this like buttoned up Wall Street thing, right? Like, I'm going to sit here and write a 3-point essay about what you're supposed to do. Kristen was very kind and gave me great constructive feedback, but she'd always be like, you'll get it next time. It'll be okay. And finally, I just abandoned all hope of trying to be Kristen. And I was like, okay, well, I just have a different shtick. And tried that.
I'll be Jen.
She studied English in college. She is so brilliant when it comes to, I mean, again, she's so creative and such an amazing storyteller. So she was like, when I reframed it as I'm telling a story, again, it was like the light bulb went on. It's like, I need to just tell a story. I need to make people care about this thing that, like, let's talk about duration. Like, why should I care about duration? Oh, okay. So it was just like the reframing. And I've said this before. It's like the student became the master. I mean, like, she has just taken on, especially when, like, we do these creative reels. And I think that one of the things that's, I mean, I'm speaking for you, but, like, I think it's been so cool is, like, honestly, social media has become an outlet for a lot of the creativity that you don't get to express yourself when you're in finance.
It's literally like being in middle school and like, we're going to make a little dance
exactly.
in our backyard.
Yes.
Like, that's
We're gonna make
fun.
potions. We get to make potions now for a living.
100%.
And the irony, though, is all of these big buttoned-up firms, like Blackstone, had a holiday video where
now
where
everyone
they were
wants to make potions.
And all of these bigger firms are now starting to like lean into that. And I mean, again, we did it 2 years earlier, so, but like it's wild. Like there has been actually huge evolution in the industry, and I'm not sure how much it's going to translate. Like, I mean, again, if you're like the CEO, right? If you're Harvey Schwartz, like you can do that. Like if you're like, but it's you know, if as you get more junior down, I hope that again there's a little more just creativity and like.
Well, that's the complete opposite of being of taking yourself so seriously, which is like what they want to do, but no one wants to watch a video of like Mr. Buttoned Up, like here's what you need to know, guy. And I will say that's like the one thing that I've learned with doing social media and being on camera. You literally have to be comfortable with looking fucking stupid.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And like being awkward or cringe. Let's talk about cringe. Did you guys feel cringe when you first start posting?
Yes,
Stop.
we literally did a video dancing on TikTok. That was the first one that went viral. By the way, I also had a spelling mistake, and Kristen was just like, "Oh God!" Like I'm gonna lean in and say that I did that on purpose.
But no, I mean, truly, everything we do is cringe, and again, you just have to get over yourself, right? There is no reason that you can't be successful, and no one is going to be for everyone. So I wasn't for everyone when I was in a buttoned-up role, and I'm sure as hell not going to be for everyone when I'm dancing in my underwear on the internet. But like, that's okay. It's fine.
Did people ever tell you were cringe, or was it just your own internal monologue?
You know, it's funny. We'll get on every reel. We'll get a cringe from like 0 posts, 0 followers, like picture of a dog. You
like
know?
we were talking about before. You're
like
jealous.
or like love, like whatever.
Oh, I got a honey.
Oh
I
yeah,
got
honey and a deer in one
the other day.
comment.
That's literally. That's like our sweetie thing. Like when people are like, okay, sweetie.
Yes.
You're like, I'm going to lean into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to make it powerful, actually. We're not going to let you condescend and dismiss us.
100%. But so I look at our stuff and I'm like, this is so cringe, but it's like, it's funny. I think it's like, it's funny how cringe we are.
Yeah.
So as long as, and I think that's another thing too, we also had to decide very early on. And I think everyone kind of needs to decide in their personal brand, right? Am I going to be the super polished, like, idealized version of myself, or am I going to be the absolutely raw, unfiltered? You know, it's funny. I did a travel vlog showcasing our flight here. And if you would ask me 2 years ago if I would film myself on social media with no makeup on, with like my hair, I mean, in the back row of a plane next to the bathroom, I would have been like, you have got to be shitting me. Never in a million years. And I'm like, I did this. It's fine. Whatever. Like, it just
it's like,
doesn't matter.
just get over yourself. And I'm one for just an anti-cringe campaign. Like, cringe needs to be dead. We can't all just be sitting here, like, wondering how we're being perceived. I just feel like that word is a detriment to all of us.
Yeah.
But I do think for us who came from this world of very scientific metrics, social media can be it can fuck with your head.
Yes.
Because
100%.
it's like, well, how many views did I get on this video? Is that going to be a measure of my self-worth? And it's like some algorithm. So it's like praying to a vague sun god in the sky. Like, what are its whims today? Will it push out my video to new people, or will it go to my 5 followers or whatever it is?
I do think that like we have gotten we've started to take it so much less personally when it comes to views, because you're like, this is a reel that like just popped off and did amazing. We posted it, and then we do something very similar. And like, because again, to Jen's point, the algorithm, whatever the hell they're doing, it changes over time. A number of views that a freaking reel gets is not a reflection on the value of the content. And so sometimes like Jen will be like, or whatever, we'll put out a reel and it's like, well, whatever, it didn't work today. And it's we tend to be less attached to it, whereas like in the very beginning, we would pour our heart and soul into something, and if it didn't go, like we would be like, oh my God, like, and we would take it so personally, like it wasn't good enough. And now we're like, no, it's fucking awesome. I don't care. Like, whatever.
But also in the very
Instagram
beginning,
gods.
you have no followers. Like, how do you push through that phase of being like,
Well, so it's funny because we started on TikTok. We were talking about TikTok before we hit record. And TikTok will do this thing. Well, it will kind of like give you a taste of going viral very early on. So Kristen's dancing video with the spelling errors
we're waiting for that.
got
It'll
like
come soon.
150,000 views, and it was our second video. And I mean, having never been engaged on social media before, I was like, what do we do with all these comments? How can we possibly respond? Like, this is
We're like, everyone losing
And they
their
were also
number
like
because
so
now
mean too. Like
we're in
most
the
of them
world
were just
virality.
like, yeah, we got the trolls. Or it was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh
but
my
so,
God.
I mean, it was such a joke, and we just had no idea. But that's what happens initially, and that's very. You kind of need to be in a good headspace before you get a taste of success with any one of these things. And I think having a support system here, I think what you guys are doing is so amazing. I know that we have a friend who's off camera who wishes not to be on camera.
Our queen, Emily, she's on camera. Emily, everyone will know her at this point.
Yeah.
But between the two of you, I think what's so amazing about what you guys are doing is you guys have such it's funny. You have an irreverent attitude and like kind of a devil may care persona. But girl, like what people can't see is we are in a professional podcast studio. You guys have done everything right. You did all the hard work. So like I think that combination of like the harder you work, the luckier you get, right? Having a great partner and a great vision and knowing what you're doing, okay, then you can go be silly. Then you can go have fun with it.
Right.
If you don't have that foundation, you don't earn the right to be irreverent and silly if you don't have the substance to back it up. Whatever your brand is, right? I think it's so much more successful when there's an irony behind it or when there's like a little bit of a wink.
Little attitude.
And I think that you've
The
done
whole
that
thing.
very, very well. And
I'm
that's
so glad
something
it's
that
transferring.
It
No,
really
it-
is.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that's one of the things that social media allows, right? Is for even the most buttoned up of Wall Street people to be able to wink a little bit and say like, it's okay. Like,
Yeah.
Speaking of that, actually, so you guys have mentioned that you know more about, you understand the financial markets more now than you did when you were
Yes.
even on Wall Street.
Yes.
So is it just a bunch of performative bullshit?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, here's the thing, right? Here's the secret. The financial markets are like they're really complicated actually. Like it's one of these things where people who come up in the industry get very good at whatever their silo is. And I think Jen had said something about like she stopped learning, right, when she was working on Wall Street. And I actually found the same thing when I was teaching because I was teaching a lot of the same stuff. And when you stop learning, like it's just, I don't know, like you sort of fizzle and die. And so for us, what's so cool is we're constantly learning. Literally just learning new things all the time has made it so that we are so much savvier about the industry than we ever were when we were working in it.
It's all a scam. Think about this, all right? If I come up with a bunch of fancy acronyms and a bunch of jargon to describe what I do, and you're like, shit, I don't know what that is, I can charge you more for it. I can make you feel stupid and you can pay me.
It's like, they must be important.
It's widgets over here, whatever I said, like the bank makes muffins, whatever it is, right? Yes, financial products can be complex, but also not really. I traded dabbled in some of the most complex interest rate derivatives out there, and I never used anything more challenging than middle school algebra. Literally X plus 2 equals Y. And I think that the more jargon and the more obfuscation that happens, the more people on Wall Street can position themselves to say, oh, well, I have something you don't. I have something you don't understand. You need to pay me for my insight and advice and things like that. I think what happens is that as a junior person coming in or as someone who is tangential to the industry, who is participating and interacting with it, you feel like you have a window in which to ask the stupid question. And you feel like that window shuts much earlier than it actually does. And I think that all that happens is a new window opens to more stupid questions that you can ask if you are brave enough. But if you don't continue asking those stupid questions, you hit a roadblock when it's like, well, I don't know what that acronym stands for, and no one taught it to me, and like I'm just gonna have a wall up and think I don't understand that.
So we named the show Okay Sweetie because in our minds it was like someone kind of condescending you or dismissing you and being like, okay, sweetie. Like people generally don't really like to be called sweetie.
No.
So what's your guys' okay, sweetie moment when you may have been dismissed or condescended to or left out?
Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, like, how long do you have? We just said we were tight on time. No, but it's funny. When we very first started, I have a very specific example. I did one of our first videos that was like quasi successful was me playing out a scene on the trading floor that had actually like kind of happened to me in real life. So I was putting myself out there being like, hey, this is more akin to what feels organic to me. I'm going to tell a story through acting out these roles. And I scripted it or whatever. The lines that I said were obviously things I had said many times in my role. And somebody got in the comments and was like, this doesn't happen. No one says that. It would be like if you were a doctor and you're like, we're going to make an incision along the medial line or whatever. And someone being in the comments like, no one says medial line in surgery, whatever it is. Watch enough Grey's Anatomy to like try to throw some
We could talk
medical
about Grey's
jargon in
Anatomy
here.
for the whole rest of the episode.
So, and I was like, wait a minute. Have I been participating in like a 20-year-long hallucination? Have I just been wrong this whole time? And I went down this spiral of self-doubt. And I was like, wait, do I really not know what I'm doing? And Kristen's like, I looked this kid up. This is like a 22-year-old in his parents' basement.
Like Billy in his
never
backyard.
worked in finance. But I was so insecure about how I was presenting this information. And I mean, truly, had Kristen not been there to be like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like,
Yeah.
you're fine. I was asking my husband. I was like, can you double check? He's like, what do you mean double check? I've been doing this job for 3 decades. Of course you're right. But it led me to question myself. And I was like, I had to do a lot of soul searching about why that impacted me. And it's so funny because we talk about people in our comments and like trolls and things like that. And you can say whatever you want about my appearance, you can say whatever you want about my clothes or whatever. But going back to that very original thing that we talked about, you think I'm wrong?
Yeah.
About
You
like
insult my intelligence?
Oh yeah, like you don't think I'm smart? Oh
Yeah.
no, like that is we now have a problem.
Yeah.
So that was I think like and it was funny. It was someone who was much younger, right? But who behind
They're so brave behind
the shield of his computer, yeah, like you're so safe inside your sandwich from Sex and the City, like felt like he could. I mean, and he probably just said like a throwaway comment, and I was like,
He was literally bored that day.
Yeah.
Or like someone just ghosted him. He needed to take it out on a woman.
Wrong.
I mean, yeah. Well,
that
there's
was
so
my
many of those.
okay, sweetie moment. Although literally, like Kristen said, I did get called honey in a real
And dear, honey and dear.
Honey and dear,
I do
yeah.
think for both of us, when we initially started, there was a little bit of the imposter syndrome where I was like, I only actually worked on Wall Street for like 3 years. And then I taught it for 13 years. So like, I know this stuff cold and I know it better than I did when I was even working. And then Jen had worked for almost a decade. Both of us felt like we didn't have enough experience to do that. And then and the irony is like nowadays, like you go on Instagram or TikTok and there's people who have zero experience and are literally being presented as experts or
Right.
journalists who also don't have the actual experience, but they've been writing about it, so they learn about it. But I do think for both of us, getting over that initial like imposter syndrome and just like putting stuff out there. And then, by the way, honestly, becoming like experts. I mean, we're like, we know this stuff better than most people because most people don't have like this
Straight
whole
up.
view of like how the whole thing fits together. So
there's
been an
positioning
evolution.
ourselves as experts made us experts. And, like,
1000%. I just decided one day that I wanted to be seen as a fashion girly, and so I just started posting on Instagram about fashion, and now people are like sending me their outfits. I'm like,
dude,
that's
I like
amazing.
whatever
You
you got going
look
on here.
phenomenal.
you just have to say it and like
Yeah.
own it.
yeah.
But for you in starting your podcast, did you ever feel any like? Did you feel like anyone was ever condescending to you? Like, what's the origin story for you?
I would say that I'm not past it yet where I just feel stupid all the time. Like, let's actually just talk about the healer one more time.
Yeah.
The psychic, because I was in such a state of fear because like this is a risk. It's like you're betting on yourself. There's so much unknown and uncertainty, but you cannot live in a state of fear and anxiety and also trust the universe. It's one or the other. Like
Yeah.
those two ideologies do not work. So when I made that shift in my mind and in my heart, I was just like, cool, I'm just gonna trust it.
It's very exciting, and we feel very honored to be part of like getting it on the ground floor of your journey because obviously you are going to crush it. And
Yeah.
so it's like, oh, she took a chance on us, like when she was just starting out.
It's so vulnerable and it's so scary, and I'm obsessed with you guys. Okay, our last segment's called Skinny Dip. The Skinny Dip. Our last our last
Please
segment's
keep that
called The Skinny Dip. For our non-finance sweeties, ahem, myself, say I have an extra $100 a month. What should I do with it?
Not investment
Buy yourself a
advice.
Go out to
Not in-
dinner,
Yeah.
like enjoy. Extra
I will
$100
say,
a month, like have fun.
Not investment advice, but like if I could go back and tell my younger self, take that $100, like put it in mean, again, like I would just put it in the stock market.
Oh yeah, no, that's great finance advice. An extra $100, go get a massage.
Yeah.
Get a martini. Enjoy your life.
Enjoy
That
your
too.
life.
Yeah, that too. Just enjoy your life.
What is one part of Wolf of Wall Street that's accurate, assuming you've seen the movie?
Oh yeah, apparently the midget tossing was real. We know someone who was on the trading floor at the time.
Okay, love it.
Oh, it's funny. I watched it, but I forget it. So
It's fine. It's irrelevant. Any advice on dating a finance bro? Where do you find them? How do you get them to commit? And how do you get them to stop wearing those dumb ass vests?
they will never stop wearing the vest. Are you kidding me? Oh my God.
Yeah, so that's funny. I think as someone who has exclusively dated finance bros,
Insane.
We are both
Insane.
married to a finance bro.
doesn't
So
know what the alternative would be like. Listen, I really think my dating history was mostly just like standing up on the trading floor at a certain period of the day and looking around and
Like,
seeing
who's the tallest?
Yeah, and just like who's still here, who's single. Like you seem like you have a pulse. Like that works. I think the secret to dating anyone in finance is, I think, having an understanding of what their lifestyle is like and the stresses that they're under. And like, I think if you're dating someone in finance, it's the one rare time where it can be like, it's not you, it's me. They're not ditching plans with you on a Friday night because they're off seeing someone else. They are tired. They are in bed or they're still at work.
I mean, there's positives to that, though.
Yeah.
Buy, hold, sell. What's one finance trend you're buying into, one you think is going to be big, and one you think is over?
Sell private credit. I think private credit, the bubble has burst. The bloom is off the rose. I think we're starting to see cracks in that system. There was just an article this morning about how people are
lots of
finding
shorts.
more
Yeah.
vehicles to short private credit. It's funny. Like, remember, if you've seen a graph of crypto, it's like, it looks like that little line you just drew with your arm. It's like the choo-choo, but like the trend line is always up. So I would just listen. If you own crypto, just hold it. It'll be fine. It'll all figure itself out.
it's like trust the universe. It'll go. You know, back to the thing. It's like it's eventually. That's the thing with like again the equity. Like especially if it's like the S&P type thing or like it's just eventually it's gonna continue. I mean,
yeah, and then buy. I mean, like this is like super niche, but I'd buy swap spreads. But I mean, that's neither here nor there, and most of our listeners.
Someone will
probably
understand it.
Yeah,
Me, don't
someone
get it.
somewhere.
Someone
yeah.
will get
And
that.
again, not investment advice. Like, Jen and I actually
We are not
fun
qualified
fact.
to give legal
Literally
investment
this
advice.
morning, Jen and we were talking about how like I tend to time everything 100% wrong.
Do ever the opposite.
Ever the opposite. It's
Look
like
at what
it is
Kristen's
a
doing
talent.
and do the opposite.
It is a
100%.
talent. I'm like my husband and I are the only people to like freaking like lose money on real estate buying in 2015. Like just don't do what we do. So anything I say, don't do it. But again, I will say back to that equity point. Like it's the whole thing. It's like if you believe in like American innovation and just like because the S&P, if you think about it, or like the NASDAQ, it's like the group of the best companies in the United States. And it's like this whole idea of like you don't pick the winners, buy the whole haystack. Like you don't have to find the one thing. So if you're investing in the whole market. And by the way, because companies that start to do poorly, like they drop out. So it's like you're always going to have almost like this certain, like there's criteria to get in it. So that's why I'm like very pro that if you're.
Diversify, as they say.
Yes.
One wardrobe staple for the corporate girlies.
Ooh.
Blazer.
Yeah.
I knew you were
blazer.
going to say blazer.
Veronica Beard blazer.
Well, now I got to come up with something else.
Sorry.
Fuck you.
Which, by the way, is only because of her. I only like discovered that brand because of Jen. So.
I think having a dress that I'll give them the tip that you gave me. Kristen wears these Beyond Yoga dresses that have built-in bras. I don't like wearing a bra, like not that I need one, but like they have these built-in bras, and also they are stretchy. But they
Critical.
look like a sheath dress. They look like a classic dress, and you can wear that under a blazer. And having something where you can sit for a long time and not get wrinkles across this part of your body. You know what I'm talking about? Like this, like what is my stomach sweating? Like how do I get those wrinkles?
It's rolly.
So it's key. So having like a stretchy dress that you're comfortable in for work is key.
That's literally what I wore yesterday. A Beyond Yoga dress and a Veronica Beard
I'm
blazer.
sitting there in a fucking like custom made designer outfit, and Kristen's there in her Beyond Yoga dress, and she looks better than I do. And I was like, oh,
And if they have pockets, that's a plus. Just saying to companies. All right, 2 more. For young women who want to quit their jobs in finance or otherwise, and we can do men too, we'll include men, I guess, to start their own business, what advice would you give them?
don't do it. I will say this. No, I think you have to earn the right to and be financially independent and stable and things like that. So I think too careless. I think people are very reckless with giving the advice of like, just go pursue your dream. I think that you have to be in such a rarefied position to be able to take a risk. I think you have to earn the right to take those risks. And so I never would have had the confidence, the know-how, also like the financial stability to do this had I not paid my dues in those early days. So like, I think there are a few unique people out there who are superstars and whatever. But for the vast majority of people, like, actually go put in your time. So by the way, because if you go out and you're an entrepreneur and you've never done that hard work and you've never worked for anyone else, how are you going to then run a great business?
Well, and I think it's also because at the end of the day, people need money. You need money to survive. So like if you have a great idea and you can get outside capital, you can get like whatever, the backing of some kind of venture capital firm, then you can actually get paid a salary. Like, okay, you can do that. But for us, I mean, we were self-funded. We turned down, I mean, we've had multiple people who have offered to buy in and we've been able to say no. Because again, for us, like we don't want to have to be at the whims of somebody else. We want to work for ourselves. And so I think it's actually, I mean, going back to that thing, it's like to start your own business. If you are being paid by a VC, like you are working for somebody. So I think that what we have right now, we are working truly for ourselves and we can make the decisions that we want. Whereas if you take outside capital, you are not. So even if you're an entrepreneur, like you're still working for again, if you're an entrepreneur who doesn't have money, who has to get VC funding, you are still working for someone. So I want to make that distinction that like, you're going to continue to be working for someone until you are financially stable enough that you can actually self-fund. And I think that that is a very different beast that is like amazing in a way that, again, like if you're the 20-year-old brilliant guy who like has some, brilliant gal who like has some amazing startup
internalized
idea.
misogyny.
I know, seriously. But I mean, going back to like the Silicon Valley, like tech bro stereotype, but you know what I mean? Like then you're still working for somebody.
Yeah.
It's just in a different way.
I also think, not that we can go there because we don't have time, but just there's like some toxicness to like go chase your dreams and like look for the next best thing. There's like a consumerist mentality about like the grass is always greener, but I think like committing to something and proving to yourself that you can do it is actually probably better for the mental. Okay, if I want to start listening to Wall Street Skinny, what episode should I start with?
Ooh, what's your favorite episode, Kristen?
Well, so I will say, I think that it's, I mean, when you go back to episode like 1 and 2, and they're so cringe AF because we scripted it all because we were
the
so
jokes.
nervous.
We scripted the fucking jokes.
We scripted the back and forth. We were so
ha-ha.
nervous.
You can't tell because I just listened to those. You can't tell.
You listened
They're
to the
so
early
cringe.
episodes?
I listened to the
Oh,
first
God,
one.
love you.
But I will say, we structured it as a curriculum. You know what? No. Here's new advice. Listen to our industry episodes. Anything that is about industry. Watch the show, HBO show Industry, and listen to those podcasts. Those are so
really
fun.
proud of those.
We're so proud of those. But if you're someone who's interested in learning about the industry, if you start with the beginning, we did structure it like a curriculum. So it's like it builds on itself. Like we define everything as we go through the early episodes. And then now, again, we talk about like speaking a language. We don't define everything as much anymore. We try not to speak just in like the jargon, but it slips in more than it did in the early episodes. But industry, hands down, I think that those are like our best episodes.
I think my pet favorite episode, or the one we get the most feedback on from a non-educational standpoint, is one of our early like sex, drugs, and rock and roll episodes, which is about the Lehman bankruptcy. So I was working on the trading floor at Lehman Brothers when we collapsed and took down the global economy, and like truly had a front row seat. And so it wasn't just like, I worked at this company that went bankrupt. It's like literally the CEO of Barclays Capital came up and made the announcement that they had bought our company from the Hoot next to mine. A Hoot is like this global intercom system that you have at your desk. And I will not name who it was, but one of the men in suits who had walked in on the trading floor along with him turned to me and goes, "You guys don't stand a fucking chance." And I was like, oh my God, I'm 22 years old. What does this mean? I'm gonna die. So like that's a good episode if you want to understand like where we fit in and where like and what our origin story was in terms of our Wall Street career, placing it in like a broader historical context.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we're out of time, but thank you guys so much.
This was
Jen
awesome.
and Kristen.
Congratulations on all your success. You are a rock star. This is going to be, anyone who's not listening to this show is a dummy.
Okay, sweeties, thanks for making it to the end of the episode. You know what you can do for us other than just be your best, brightest, most fabulous, chic self? Do us a little solid. Like, follow, comment, subscribe, rate, share with your friends, put it on your socials, send to your ex, send to your mom, whoever you want to reconnect with. It feels like a great opportunity to send them the Okay Sweetie Show. Slide in our DMs. If you have a guest suggestion, slide in our DMs. We want to have a relationship with you, sweeties. What are the other things people can do with a podcast? Send it to your dog. Send it to your pet horse. I don't know what people are into. Just send that shit out. Tell everyone how amazing it is, how much you learned, how inspired you're feeling. Like, follow, subscribe, comment. XOXO, sweetie girl.